Update. Is it unreasonable to want a divorce after my wife confessed she was tempted to cheat? Before I get into the update, I need to clarify something that many commenters were asking about in the initial post. I edited that post, but decided to include the explanation here as well. Many people have been asking how my wife getting a job was able to pay for a nanny and allow me to reduce my work hours slightly. The answer is that we live in the northeastern USA, where minimum wages are relatively good, and nanny was a poor choice of words on my part. She's more of an informal babysitter, not in an official capacity. She's a college student who wanted to make some money while taking online classes, without the hassle of getting a formal job. My wife makes around $16 per hour with a standard 40-hour work week, while we pay the babysitter $10 per hour for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. After taxes on my wife's income and paying for the babysitter, we have around $900 in a month left over, which has allowed me to reduce my work hours slightly. Now, for the update. I called in sick to work today, which is something I rarely ever do, and asked my wife to do the same so we could sit down and talk about everything. She agreed, and this morning we had a long, heartfelt discussion. I told her that I was sorry for what I said in the heat of the moment. I don't want to divorce her. I was angry and hurt, and wasn't thinking about the damage threatening divorce would do. I told her that I understand things have been difficult for us the last 3 years, but I was shocked that she would be sorely tempted to cheat on me after just 6 weeks with some random guy at her job. I told her that having been the sole, or at least the main provider for our family pretty much the entire time we've known each other, I felt like I wasn't being appreciated enough for the work and effort I've been putting in. She said she felt the same way, that she felt like she was struggling thanklessly since I was never around to be with her. I told her that was only the case because I had to make enough money to pay for the kid and the house she wanted. And before anyone tries to twist my words, I love my son dearly. I am not simply putting up with him because she wanted to keep him. If I took less overtime to see her and help with the kid more often, we'd have trouble keeping the lights on. We both agreed that we needed more time with each other at home, but figuring out how to make that happen took a while. Eventually, I reminded her of what I said when we first bought the house we are currently in. It is too much house for us. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house with more space than we need, and the mortgage and property taxes are too high. I brought this up when we first looked at the house, but my wife insisted that it would be the perfect place for our family to grow up in, and that once it was paid off, we would be set. However, seeing how much we've struggled to afford this house while slowly falling apart physically and mentally, I think she understands now that it's too much for us. We had a long conversation about it, acknowledging that we both made decisions with the best intentions, but perhaps underestimated the financial and emotional toll. We realized that downsizing to a more affordable home could alleviate some of the stress and allow us to spend more quality time together as a family. It was a difficult realization, but we agreed that making this change could help us rebuild our relationship and create a healthier environment for our son. After some prodding, I convinced her that we need to start looking for a house to downsize into. Selling our current house will give us enough cash to pay off the mortgage, though not by much. Once we're in a smaller home with smaller expenses, I won't have to work as much, meaning we can spend more time together as a couple and a family. She told me that she just wanted my name back, and I honestly almost cried hearing how much she meant it. I was so focused on work and paying the bills that I lost sight of what we needed as a couple, and our marriage very nearly imploded because of it. The final issue to address was her job, and more specifically, the scumbag who was hitting on her while knowing she was married. Given our current financial situation, it wouldn't be wise to make her quit her job and go back to staying at home. Plus, it would probably only make her feel trapped again, since she only recently got back out into the world after being at him. However, I can't stand the thought of that guy even looking at my wife, especially since I know she harbored some sort of interest at some point, even if it came from loneliness and desperation. I told her that at the very least, she needs to report the guy to management/HR and ask for different hours so that they are never in the building at the same time. If that happens, there's no reason for her to quit. But if that doesn't happen, then I'll be helping her look for a new job immediately. This way, she can keep working and maintain her sense of independence, while we also address the inappropriate behavior at her current job. We both agreed that it's important for her to feel safe and respected at work, and for me to feel reassured that our relationship is not being undermined. Things are still difficult right now, but as I typed this a couple of hours after our conversation, I think we've pulled back from the point of no return. We're both taking the day to calm down and think rationally about what needs to happen to get our financial and personal relationship back on track, but I'm hopeful. Thank you so much to everyone who gave advice and constructive criticism. I know lots of you suggested couples therapy, and while I'm considering it, that's another big expense I don't want to take on right now unless it's absolutely necessary. If things continue to improve between my wife and me, then I won't waste the money, but if things start to stagnate or get worse again, then I'll bite the bullet and suggest getting professional help to her. For now, we're focusing on clear communication and taking small steps to rebuild our connection. We're committed to finding solutions together and making the changes needed to strengthen our relationship. Your support and insights have been invaluable, and I appreciate all the thoughtful responses. Comment. Freebag. Fantastic update. Most of us were rooting for you. Isn't it wonderful when sitting down like a grown-up and having a conversation works out? So glad for you both. Recent data 305. Honestly, I've never been tempted to cheat, but I have had dreams of just running away and starting over somewhere. Not recently, back when we were burning candles at both ends, raising kids. You are at one of the most difficult points in marriage. I think both of you are just overwhelmed and making poor word choices when you argue. If you both commit to working together to build a life, you can make it together. Fruity Scarata. If you want to vent frustration and stop your wife dead in her tracks with rage and humor at the same time, I suggest using a line I came across some time ago. I tell my wife flat out that she is pissing me off, I'm hitting my limit, and I would never cheat on her or leave, but if she doesn't cut the shit, I absolutely will go to her favorite restaurant alone and order food without her. Slip on shades and don't look back at the explosion. Bright Positive 963. I feel like this comment didn't get the response it deserves. As a wife, I think this is brilliant and actually would stop me dead in my tracks. It's an absolute slap in the face without being mean, threatening, or destructive. It conveys so much frustration, but with a sense of humor. I'm dead at this. My husband better not ever dare eat escargot at my favorite French restaurant without me. But if he does, I'll know he means business. Specialici 6847. We have a comedian that had a bit that was kind of like this. It was about how back in the day, children weren't worried about their parents divorcing. Whenever mom and dad fought, the kids were more worried about the quality of the food for supper. My mother said she had the exact same thing at home. Whenever my grandparents had a fight, my grandmother would just make a giant pot of pea soup, and they'd be eating it for the entire week. The first evening, they would be complaining, but by the fifth dinner, she and her siblings would be fighting over the soup because it gets better when it sits a few days.